North Carolina and Miami meeting for only the second time as ranked teams. David Lake of Inside the U and Taylor Vippolis of Inside Carolina joining us to break down this game. Now, it could have been a matchup between undefeated teams as the Tar Heels are 5-0 for the first time since 1997. That was the final season of Mack Brown's first tenure in Chapel Hill. But the Canes fumbled away the win last week against Georgia Tech when Mario Cristobal opted not to take a knee in the final second. So momentum going in different directions for these two teams here. Miami coming off one of the worst coaching blunders of all time. On the other side, UNC gets back Tez Walker after much disagreement with the NCAA. So let's get into the mindsets of these two teams coming into this one. And David, you can start us off here.
Yeah, I mean, in a big picture sense, in terms of coming back from a heartbreaking loss, this mirrors in a lot of ways last year's game against North Carolina. Last year, Miami was coming off a disastrous 45-31 loss to Middle Tennessee State. UM somewhat rebounded in that game, putting forth a competitive effort, falling just short to North Carolina 27-24. Of course, this year it's a disastrous result that they're coming off of it in a different way. But I will say the feedback I'm getting so far to this point on the team is that they feel like they're able to move forward off of that disastrous loss to Georgia Tech there at the end of the game. There's been no finger pointing in the locker room amongst the players or coaches. There's no lingering negativity. Miami has 41 new scholarship players since last season, and they feel like this year's group is more resilient and not going to get down in the weeds on the negativity. So I think we'll find out in the first quarter just what this team's mental makeup is, really. But so far this week, I'm hearing good things about how they're able to flush that Georgia Tech game.
And North Carolina couldn't be feeling better about where they are entering this game, 5-0 for the first time in what feels like forever. And I'm not so much worried about that like rat poison type narrative of a team really feeling themselves, being undefeated, being ranked inside the top 15, because this is all Mack Brown's kind of talked about. This team wants to go from good to great. They have the skilled position players. They have a great quarterback in Drake May. And I think this North Carolina team, the sense from talking to people around the program is that they understand that this Miami team coming in might be playing a bit desperate with their loss against Georgia Tech and trying to stay in the ACC title picture. And I believe they know that this challenge against Miami has the best offensive and defensive line that North Carolina is going to see so far this season and probably the entire season. Miami is really good inside the trenches. But what helped North Carolina is I don't think Miami has seen an offense like UNC's. And right now, UNC's offense is playing with so much confidence, and getting Tez Walker back has seemingly rejuvenated a team that was already playing pretty well.
Well, let's get into UNC's offense a little bit more. Guys, it's so rare in the transfer portal era to have a marquee game with two quarterbacks who have never played for another school, but that's what we're getting here with Tyler Van Dyke and Drake May. So starting with May here, he now has the fifth shortest odds to win the Heisman at 10-1, coming off of his best game of the season. Taylor, what have you seen that makes him such a special talent?
Yeah, he just makes everything look so effortless at the quarterback position. Getting Tez Walker back, I think, really helps him. And really, getting Tez Walker back takes so much pressure off everybody else in the offense. But when you have a quarterback like Drake May that could pick you apart, and then having somebody like Tez Walker now that can kind of stretch the field. Tez Walker only had 43 yards in this past game against Syracuse, but Drake May still throws for over 400 yards for just the third time in his career. And when you look at Drake's numbers, like he was great last year as a redshirt freshman, but his numbers are across the board improved this year. His QBR is up 4 points. His completion percentage is up 6 points. The yards per attempt, they're actually increased this year, even going from Phil Longo's offense which was more vertical based, and Chip Lindsey who takes more what the defenses are giving him. So it's crazy to talk about Drake May and how good he was last year, and you're watching him and it's like he's even better this year.
Now he'll have to go up against a Miami defense that ranks tops in the Power 5 against the run and is allowing opposing quarterbacks to complete just 56 of their passes. So David, how will the Canes be able to limit Drake May?
Yeah, I think Miami understands that being effective against Drake May means you're winning in the margins. I think they understand Drake May is going to get his yardage and North Carolina is going to get plenty of points. But I think the goal for Miami is to maybe make him a little inefficient in some ways. And the way that defensive coordinator Lance Guidry looks to do that is with creative pressure packages to keep quarterbacks off balance and also speed up their decision-making process to try and get them out of rhythm. Miami isn't necessarily amongst the leaders in the country in sacks, but they are amongst the leaders in affecting the quarterback in terms of pressures. They're third in the country with a 43% pressure rate. We saw this play out against Texas A&M. In that game, Miami didn't record a single stat, but they affected the quarterback with Connor Wegman. They generated 37 pressures against him. They got 7 knockdowns against him. 53% of his dropbacks were under pressure. So understanding doing that against Drake May is a whole different beast, whole different animal. And against Pittsburgh earlier this year, Drake May handled pressure quite well. So they're going to try and affect him that way. I also think, too, just from an offensive standpoint, it's important for Miami to maybe control the ball with time of possession. But that's also a strength of North Carolina. So that's going to be an interesting game within the game to monitor.
David, I'll stick with you as we talk about the quarterback on the other side now. Obviously, we know how good Tyler Van Dyke can be, but he threw 3 interceptions in that loss to Georgia Tech after throwing just 1 in his previous 4 games combined. This UNC defense much improved, so how does TVD hold his own against them?
Yeah, I think a big question for Tyler this week is just, was that Georgia Tech performance an outlier for this season, or did the Yellow Jackets kind of expose some things against Miami's passing attack? Simply put, Tyler Van Dyke, that was his worst performance of the season. And for Miami to have a chance in this game, they need him to play the way he did in those first 4 games. Georgia Tech mixed up a lot of coverages against Tyler Van Dyke, and it did confuse him, leading to those 3 interceptions, like you said. So I will say there was a handful of times, though, in that Georgia Tech game where you do see that NFL throwing ability from Van Dyke. So he still has that ability, of course. He's got to make better decisions with the football. And really that Georgia Tech game kind of boiled down to, beyond the non-kneel, was about turnovers and inefficiency in the red zone. And at times those things overlapped with Tyler Van Dyke committing some turnovers in the red zone. So I think Miami's got to score at least 30 points to have a chance in this game. And they don't get that done without Tyler Van Dyke being on point. Last year, he threw for nearly 500 yards against North Carolina. North Carolina's defense is much improved this year, but he at least does have that pass performance against the Tar Heels to draw some sort of confidence on.
And with this North Carolina team, you have Drake May, you have Tez Walker, and will he or won't he play this entire season? But to me, the story of this Carolina team has been how much improved North Carolina's defense is. Last year, we're talking about a defense that was essentially ranked in the 110s or the 120s for basically every stat you could imagine. Total defense, scoring defense, passing defense, rushing defense. Like, the Carolina defense was not good at anything last year. This year, they've played 4 Power 5 opponents. They're up to 35th in total defense and 30th in scoring defense, they're only averaging 19 points per game. There's been such an emphasis on what the coaches are not only teaching, but this North Carolina team is going out there and executing their game plan. Like against Syracuse, all we heard about in the lead up to the game was how effective Garrett Schrader is in the rushing game, and you saw how effective North Carolina was in containing him into the pocket and funneling everything inside. And that's been a huge change from last year, where the coaches might have been telling them something, but it looked like the defense was just going out there and kind of doing what they want. Some of that has been addition by subtraction, some of the players that Carolina lost in the transfer portal, and I think some of that has been players that Carolina has gotten in the transfer portal. And then they've also made coaching adjustments. They brought in a new cornerback coach. The corners are playing great right now. They brought in Ted Monachino from the NFL to help out with the pass rushers. They brought in a new grad assistant, Cam Spence, to help out with the pass rushers. And really, at every level, this North Carolina defense looks so good right now.
All right, we need an X factor or a player to watch. So Taylor, who's your guy?
I'm going to go with Elijah Huzzy. That's one of the guys that I was just talking about with the transfer portal. North Carolina has been great at identifying and getting talent from the transfer portal. You have Elijah Huzzy from East Tennessee State. Willie Lampkin is another guy from the transfer portal. You have Tez Walker, and you also have Nate McCollum from the transfer portal. But the reason why I'm picking Elijah Huzzy is because he's the guy on this Carolina defense that has been able to create the turnovers that you're looking for to steal some extra possessions and get Drake May back out on the field. He leads the team right now with 3 interceptions. And I'm interested to see where he plays, because right now they have him at the star position, which is essentially at nickel. And I think lining him up against Miami's number 1 receiver, Xavier Restrepo, is going to be the matchup to watch and kind of dictate, can this North Carolina team force Tyler Van Dyke to go away from somebody that he is so comfortable going to.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to keep it in the secondary as well with highlighting Miami safety Cam Kitchens. He's coming off that Georgia Tech game in which he was beat over the top on a busted coverage at the end of the game to allow Georgia Tech to go win that game in the last second. Also last year in the Miami-North Carolina game, Kitchens had a bad bust early in the game, allowing a 74-yard touchdown pass to J.J. Jones. He allowed another busted coverage, another deep shot later in the game that led to a touchdown by the Tar Heels to take an easy 14-0 lead against the Hurricanes. So Cam Kitchens is arguably Miami's best player on the defense. He is a good player, a big time player for them, but sometimes his aggressiveness can cause issues on the back end. And I'm curious to see if North Carolina tries to get him to bite on some things, because he has shown that propensity in the past. So North Carolina's offense is going to generate some big gains, but those gains can't be touchdowns from Miami's standpoint. And Cam Kitchens, as that safety, is going to be expected to clean a lot of that up.
All right, Taylor and David, thanks so much for joining us. And for more on the game, check out InsideCarolina.com and InsideTheU.com. They're keeping you up to date on all things UNC and Miami football and recruiting all year long.